afternoon, everyone. So, before starting with our today's session, I just want to revise what we did in neural networks. When we started with our course, we started with neural networks. So, can anyone let me know what neural networks were that we started? What were the basic terminologies we discussed there? And how we were calculating the output? Is anyone who can answer? Students, I want to know about what actually was neural network when we started before in chapter 1. What were the basic terminologies? Okay, so Harsh is saying that neural network is based on our brain cells. Okay, neurons, that is correct. So, can anyone explain how things were working in neural network and why was it so important? Yes, anybody can answer. Right now, I can see. Okay, Ritvik is saying there are maybe three layers: input, hidden, and output layer. That is correct, Ritvik. But before that, can you let me know that what was the main purpose of creating neural networks? Why did we needed neural networks? Yes, students, please answer. The question is, why did we need it? Neural networks. All right. So the answer I'm getting is to recognize pattern in a data for communication between two units. Okay. For analyzing sets of data, that is very correct. Now, can anyone let me know that instead of input layer, hidden layer, and output layer, obviously this belongs to the structure. Alright, Prayut has written something. Neural networks are computing systems with interconnected nodes at work, much like neurons in the human brain. Using algorithms, they can recognize hidden patterns and correlations in data, cluster and classify it over time. Alright, so instead of the layers which Rutvik has told us about input, hidden, and output layer, what were the other terminologies that belong to neural networks? How are we calculating the output for that? There was something known as the base or bias, we can say BIAS. Then we had the weights. So the weights were actually indicating how much the connections are strong between the layers, right? So this is how we were calculating the output based on some of these things like weights and bias. Then what was the input values, and then with the processing, we were calculating the output. So in your lab, I actually give you the topics that okay, study about this topic, and then you can write it down in the form of a document or anything. So there my actual reason of doing that activity is so that you come to know about new things. We have discussed many things about the neural networks, the various examples, etc. Yes, Harsh, we had input, weight, bias, activation function, and output. And till now, we have considered only one activation function, that is sigmoid function right now. Okay. So today we are going to discuss with what actually is artificial neural network, how things work in artificial neural network, and what are the different types available for the artificial neural network based on the different layers present in its architecture. Alright, so let us start. So the first question is, what is ANN? Today's session will be a bit theoretical, so please remain a bit attentive. An artificial neural network is the piece of computing system designed to simulate the way human brain analyzes and processes information. It is the foundation of artificial intelligence because intelligence obviously is related to brain, and if we talk in sense of brain, there we come about brain cells that are neurons which are directly related to neural networks. So that is why neural networks acts as the foundation, or artificial neural networks acts as the foundation of artificial intelligence and solves problems that would prove impossible or difficult by human or statistical standards. So now if you see, before, when the computers were being discovered or in the early ages, that time the normal processing, the normal computations or the normal derivations that we had at that time used to take so much time just for the processing and giving the output. But now if we calculate that with the help of the PCs that we have now, it just takes some moments and then we have the output. The basic thing behind working behind this complete process is artificial intelligence. We are making our systems more intelligent, through which our systems can understand better what the input we are providing, and according to that, our systems are able to give the output. So ANNs have self-learning capabilities that enable them to produce better results as more data becomes available. So the thing is, yes, obviously, as some of the students were saying, that ANN or neural networks are used for discovering the patterns in data. That is very correct. If we have some of the things like speech recognition, visual recognition, where the computer has to do something to recognize the output or recognize a pattern in any kind of data, whether it is the audio data, the visual image data, the videos, or the normal textual data. In that case, the main task of neural network is to identify the patterns, to use its intelligence, and try to identify what is happening in the data, and then give the output accordingly. So they have mentioned some of the points over here related to ANN. An artificial neural network is the component of artificial intelligence that is meant to simulate the functioning of human brain. Processing units make up ANNs, which in turn consist of inputs and outputs. The inputs are what the ANN learns from to produce the desired output. When we were discussing about neural networks in our chapter 1, that we discussed that there was a need to train our neural network, because वहाँ पे the neural network जो हमारे पास होगा, obviously it is an algorithm. So we have to train our algorithm based on the data that we have, so that whatever input we provide, अभी वो जो input हम provide करेंगे वो किसी स्पेसिफिक चीज के लिए ही होगा, एंड उसके अकॉर्डिंग ही हमें आउटपुट चाहिए होगा. Like if I take the example, I have taken this example before also. Like if I have the data of people with certain lifestyle, certain age number, and certain eating or drinking habits, so what is the probability that that person will get certain type of cancer? This is the data set which I will be having already. According to that, I will train my neural network algorithm, and then I will create a system. उस केस में जो भी मेरे पास इनपुट होगा, तो मेरे पास सपोज न्यू पेशेंट आया and he is having certain symptoms, let us say, and he wants to get himself checked. So first of all, what we have to do, we just have to input his details, like his age, his lifestyle, his eating and drinking habits, and then our system will able to give the output that this is the probability that this person has certain type of cancer. So this is how we train our neural network for performing the desired things that we want. All right, so the next point is processing units make up ANNs, which in turn consist of inputs and outputs. The inputs are what the ANN learns from to produce the desired output. Third point is backpropagation. Backpropagation is the set of learning rules used to guide artificial neural networks. Now, you must have heard about this thing, backpropagation. Backpropagation is something, obviously, अगर हम neural network को अपनी train कर रहे हैं, so it is not the thing that we are perfectionist and जो हम weights या फिर biases लेंगे for training our neural network that will be correct. It's not the case. There is a chance that हम 90% of the time तो गलत ही होंगे. So with the help of backpropagation, we will be able to identify the error that between the desired output that we want and output that we are getting by inputting certain weights and biases. We will discuss about this topic later on. So the next point that they have mentioned is the practical applications for ANNs are far and wide, encompassing finance, personal communication, industry, education, and so on. Now, the next topic that we have is understanding an artificial neural network. Artificial neural networks are built like human brain with neuron nodes interconnected like a web. I hope you remember the diagram that we have discussed before. The human brain has hundreds of billions of cells called neurons. Each neuron is made up of cell body that is responsible for processing information by carrying information towards input and away, that is outputs from the brain. Now, right now also, what is our brain doing? It is receiving some information. It is doing some of the processing in your brain with the help of neurons, of course. And then it is letting you people to understand what I am saying. An ANN has hundreds or thousands of artificial neurons called processing units, which are interconnected by nodes. These processing units are made up of inputs and output units. The input units receive various forms of structures of information based on internal weighting system, and the neural network attempts to learn about the information presented to produce one output report. Just like human needs rules and guidelines to come up with a result or output, ANNs also use a set of learning rules called backpropagation, an abbreviation for backward propagation of error, to perfect their output results. An ANN initially goes through a training phase where it learns to recognize patterns in data. We have discussed these points, so right now I'm just reading them. If you'll be having any doubt in certain sentence or certain point, let me know. So an ANN initially goes through a training phase where it learns to recognize patterns in data, whether visually, orally, or textually. During this supervised phase, the network compares its actual output produced with what it was meant to produce, the desired output. So the basic thing that they are trying to say over here is that according to the output that we want, we are training our neural network algorithm for whether what type of input we enter, we should be able to get a desired output related to obviously the data on which we have trained the algorithm. The difference between both outcomes is adjusted using backpropagation. This means that network works backwards, going from the output unit to input units to adjust the weights of the connections between the units until the difference between the actual and desired outcomes produce the lowest possible error. बैक प्रोपगेशन के बारे में इफ वी टॉक, तो उसमें क्या होगा कि सपोज हमने अपने न्यूरल नेटवर्क को ट्रेन करने के लिए सर्टेन वेट्स और सर्टेन बायसेस रैंडमली गेस कर लिए, एंड देन वी आर ट्राइंग टू ट्रेन आवर न्यूरल नेटवर्क, बट जो हमारे को डिजायर्ड आउटपुट चाहिए था वो ऑब्टेन नहीं हुआ, बट वी आर गेटिंग सम अदर आउटपुट। ओके, या फिर ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि जो हमारे पास आउटपुट आ रहा है by using those random weights and biases, that was not itna accurate. We can say somewhat accurate but not actually correct. So in that case we will make use of back propagation. Back propagation में क्या होगा, from the output we will move back towards the input. We will check the weights and the biases that we have considered, and according to the desired output that we want, we will make the changes in the weights and the biases so that जो भी इनपुट हो हमारे को डिजायर्ड आउटपुट मिलना चाहिए, तो उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम चेंजेस करेंगे हमारे वेट्स और बायसेस। दिस इज व्हाट वी विल लर्न इन बैक प्रोपगेशन, हाउ टू कैलकुलेट द एरर, मीन स्क्वायर एरर, etc. So during the training and supervisory stage, the ANN is taught what to look for and what its options should be, using yes-no question types with binary numbers. For example, a bank that wants to detect credit card fraud on time may have 4 input units filled with these questions. Is the transaction in a different country from the user's resident country? Is the website the card is being used with affiliated with companies or countries on the bank's watch list? Is the transaction amount larger than $2,000? Is the name on the transaction bill same as the name of the card holder? So if we have this scenario, so in that case हमारे पास obviously output आएगा in the form of yes yes or no no, whatever. तो उसके according how will we train? The bank wants the fraud detection responses to yes 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 no. So what they have done कि उनके पास ये desired output आना चाहिए, which in binary format will be 1 1 1 and 0. If the network's actual output is 1010, it adjusts its results until it delivers the output that coincides with 1110. Now we understand this thing कि हमारे पास आंसर आना चाहिए 1110, but अगर 1010 हमारा सिस्टम दे रहा है when we are training it, तो उस टाइम पे we will make the back propagation and we will actually train our system in such a way so that वो answer दे 1110. This is how training is done for neural networks. After training, the computer system can alert the bank for pending fraudulent transactions, saving the bank lots of money. So next we'll move on to supervised learning. Now we have discussed this topic. Normally supervised learning क्या है? But यहाँ पे we will be discussing about supervised learning neural networks. So as the name suggests, supervised learning takes place under the supervision of a teacher. This learning process is dependent. During this training of ANN, under supervised learning. The input vector is presented to the network, which will produce an output vector. This output vector is compared with the desired target output vector. An error signal is generated. If there is a difference between the actual output and the desired or target output vector, on the basis of this error signal, the weights would be adjusted until the actual output is matched with the desired output. So this is something that we have discussed before also. Now they have just given it a formal language to it. Now the next topic that we are going to discuss is known as perceptrons. So what actually is perceptrons? It is also something like neural network, we can say. But it is the basic unit, जैसे कि हमने neurons पढ़े थे in case of neural networks. We will talk about perceptrons. These are one of the basic operational unit of artificial neural networks. How it works, let us see. Developed by Frank Rosenblatt by using McCulloch and Pitt's model. Perceptrons is the basic operational unit of artificial neural networks. It employs supervised learning rules and is able to classify the data into two classes. Operational characteristics of perceptrons are: it consists of single neuron with an arbitrary number of inputs along with adjustable weights. Now, if you remember the diagram that we discussed for the architecture of neural network in chapter 1, in that case we had like one or more inputs for a neuron. Some processing was being made with the help of weights and biases, and then we were actually calculating the output. So over here they are saying it consists of a single neuron. It has certain number of inputs which has adjustable weights. But the output of the neuron is 1 or 0 depending upon the threshold. So it consists of a bias whose weight is always 1. This is the difference we can actually consider for perceptrons and the normal functioning of neural network. Now next we have the figure of perceptron. So this is how perceptron something looks like. So we have a neuron. It has certain inputs which has adjustable weights. वहाँ पे हम x1, x2 जो भी है xn तक, these are the inputs obviously, and it will consist of certain weights. Then adder में हम क्या करते थे? Weights को और जो inputs था, we were multiplying those and we were adding it with the bias. Yes, तो वो जो हमारे पास equation आती थी, we were passing those equations through the activation function and then we were calculating the output. So it is also the same thing over here, बस यहाँ पे difference ये होगा कि हम weights को adjust कर सकते हैं and bias की value will always be 1. So this is the basic difference that we have discovered so far. Next we have is perceptrons has the following 3 basic elements: links, adder, and activation function. Now links is it would have a set of connection links which carries a weight including a bias always having weight 1. Adder is it adds the input after they are multiplied with their respective weights. x1 w1 plus b is equal to output. इस तरह से we used to calculate the output of neural networks. And then we have activation function. It limits the output of neuron. The most basic activation function is the Heaviside step function that has two possible outputs, but we have discussed about the sigmoid. So we will stick with the sigmoid function only. Okay. So next, let us discuss how does a perceptron work. The process begins by taking all the input values and multiplying them by their weights. Then all of these multiplied values are added together to create the weighted sum. The weighted sum is then applied to the activation function, producing the perceptron's output. The activation function plays the integral role of ensuring the output is mapped between required values such as 0, 1 or minus 1, 1. It is important to note that the weight of the input is indicative of the strength of the node. So this thing we already know. जो weight है वो जो हमारी nodes के बीच में links है उसकी strength को determine करता है. Yes, it ranges from 0 to 1. Then जो इस case में in case of perceptrons the bias value will always remain 1. These are some of the things that we have already know because हमने ये चीजें जो output find करने वाला process होता है we have already discussed before. Similarly, an input's bias value gives the ability to shift the activation function curve up or down. Now, perceptrons and machine learning. As simplified form of neural network, specifically, a single layered neural network. Perceptrons play an important role in binary classification. This means the perceptron is used to classify data into two parts. Sometimes perceptrons are also referred as linear binary classifiers for this reason. Now after this, we will be discussing about Adeline, which is known as adaptive linear neurons, and also about Madeline. So Madeline is something which is known as multiple adaptive linear neurons. This we will discuss tomorrow. Okay. So for today, you have a task. The task is that please study about what actually perceptrons are, how things work in perceptrons, and how are they different from the normal functioning of a neuron. For the normal functioning of a single neuron. क्योंकि right now we have discussed about this only कि अगर हमारे पास एक न्यूरॉन होगा तो उसका आउटपुट हम कैसे कैलकुलेट करते हैं. So उसके according you will study about it and further we will discuss tomorrow. Alright, anyone having any doubt in this thing? So please let me know. Okay then. Let's move to today's attendance. Class 7TC1, 16 Series 67.
Yes, ma'am.
Roll number 9. Roll number 12, 19,
Yes, ma'am.
37,
Yes, ma'am.
63, 67,
Yes, ma'am.
69, okay, 73, 77, 79,
77, ma'am, present.
okay, 79 is present, 80, roll number 80,
मैम 80 एंड मैम मोजिल मैम यहाँ पे राइट नहीं कर सकता, ये वो भी प्रेजेंट है मैम, उसका मेरे को मैसेज
then
आया था, वो राइट नहीं कर सकता। 80 मैम
85,
में
yes I got it,
Yes, ma'am. 85.
okay, 86,
Yes, ma'am.
100, 108, 85 I got it, 112, 113, 119, 127,
Yes, ma'am.
129,
Yes, ma'am.
130, 135, 130, okay, 135 is present, 136, 164, 190, Harsh, okay, Fennel is present, then 190 is also present, okay, roll number 73, okay, moving on to class TC2, 18 series 9, roll number 7, roll number 11, 29, 58,
Yes, ma'am.
68, 71, 75, 78, 84, 88, 89, 96, 97, 103, 115, 117, 115 is present, 117, 118, 133, 173. All right, class 7TC3, roll number 4, 40, 172, 182, roll number 1, 18 series 1, 18 series 12. Okay. All right, students, thank you. Please don't forget to study about what perceptrons are.